We already dug here. Detective Elias Ward said it before anyone could lower the first shovel. The search dog stood over a patch of dark earth near the edge of the clearing. Its body was rigid. Its nose hovered inches above the ground. It had been pulling toward that exact spot for nearly 5 minutes. The handler shortened the leash. Easy, Scout. The dog ignored him. It scratched once at the soil, then barked. One sharp burst, then another. Ward stared at the disturbed earth. He knew that patch. He knew the slope behind it. He knew the fallen cedar 10 yards downhill. He even remembered the boulder half buried beside the trail. 22 years earlier, he had spent 3 days standing in this clearing. He had watched 2 dogs alert in the same place. He had watched officers mark the coordinates. He had watched an excavator remove enough earth to bury a truck. They had found roots, stone, old animal bones. Nothing human. The young deputy beside him checked the GPS unit again. Coordinates match. Ward did not look away from the ground. How close? Less than 3 feet. A volunteer holding a shovel gave a nervous laugh. So we're digging the same hole twice. Ward finally looked at him. No. The laugh disappeared. Ward pointed toward the soil. We're digging it 22 years later. The clearing went quiet. Even the dog stopped barking. Sheriff Mara Vance stepped closer. She had worked under Ward when she was still a patrol officer. Now she ran the department. You still think this is a mistake? Ward shook his head. I think mistakes make sense. He looked at the dog. This doesn't. Vance raised one hand. The first shovel entered the ground. Then another. The soil was damp and tightly packed. Roots fought every inch. Nobody spoke while the hole deepened. Ward stood at the edge and watched each layer come away. Dark topsoil, pale clay, rock. He remembered the original search with painful clarity. The missing boy had been 17. Caleb Mercer. Last seen walking away from a campground after an argument with 2 friends. No vehicle, no phone activity, no confirmed sighting after midnight. The dogs had tracked him for nearly 2 miles. Then they had stopped here. Both animals had barked at the ground until their handlers pulled them away. Ward had believed they were smelling something below the surface. He had ordered the excavation himself. Nothing had been there. The case had followed him for more than 2 decades. It had survived promotions, a divorce, retirement. It had outlived Caleb's father. It had outlived one of the original dog handlers. It had never given Ward a single new answer. Until that morning, a shovel struck something hard. The sound was too dull to be stone. Everyone stopped. The volunteer slowly knelt and brushed away the soil with one gloved hand. A curved white surface appeared beneath the clay. Nobody moved. Vance whispered, "Get forensics." Ward already knew what they had found. The technician entered the hole and worked carefully around the object. More bone emerged. The upper curve of a skull, the edge of an eye socket, a line of teeth packed with dirt. The dog began whining, not barking. Whining. Its handler pulled it several yards back. The technician uncovered the jaw and looked up. Male. Ward's throat tightened. Vance opened the old case folder she had carried into the clearing. A faded dental chart was clipped inside. The technician compared the visible teeth, then looked at Ward. The records appear consistent. Ward did not answer. The technician continued. "We'll need laboratory confirmation." Ward stared into the hole. He could already see the answer. A cracked molar on the lower left. A missing canine. The same details he had memorized from Caleb Mercer's file. Vance said his name quietly. "Caleb." Ward stepped back from the edge. The clearing seemed smaller than he remembered. The trees felt closer. The air felt heavier. He looked at the ground around the hole. No new disturbance, no vehicle tracks, no drag marks. No sign that anyone had recently carried a body into the area. The remains lay beneath roots thick enough to have grown for years. A younger officer asked, "Could the first excavation have missed him?" Ward turned toward him. "We removed 8 feet of soil." The officer glanced at the hole. Maybe the coordinates were wrong. They weren't. Maybe the reports were wrong. I wrote the reports. The officer had no answer. Ward looked toward the skull again. 22 years earlier, he had stood in this exact place while machinery tore the clearing apart. There had been no body. Now, Caleb Mercer was beneath their feet. The technician uncovered part of the rib cage. Several bones were broken, not cracked by pressure. Broken violently. Ward crouched at the edge. Those fractures happened before burial? The technician examined them. "I can't tell you yet." "Guess?" She hesitated. "They don't look like excavation damage." Vance asked, "Animal?" The technician shook her head. "Not any animal pattern I recognize." Scout suddenly growled. Every head turned. The dog was no longer looking at the hole. It faced the trees behind Ward. Its ears flattened. Its handler tightened the leash. "What is it?" Scout backed away. The handler gave a command. The dog ignored it. It pulled once. Hard. Away from the forest. Ward slowly turned. Nothing moved between the trees. No branches shook. No birds flew. The forest looked empty. Scout growled again. Then the sound changed. The dog yelped, spun, and ran. Its leash tore free from the handler's hand. Scout! The dog crossed the clearing and disappeared down the trail toward the vehicles. The handler started after it. Ward caught his arm. "Wait!" The man stared at him. "That's my dog." Ward kept watching the trees, then let it run. Nobody spoke. A branch snapped somewhere beyond the clearing. Not close, not far. One clean break. Then silence. Vance drew her sidearm. Several others did the same. Ward remained still. Another branch cracked. Lower this time. He could not tell whether the sound was approaching. The forest carried noise strangely. The handler whispered, "Bear." Ward looked at the hole, at the broken ribs, at the dark line between the trees. "I don't know." Nothing else happened. After nearly a minute, Vance lowered her weapon. The technician resumed working. Ward did not move. His attention stayed on the forest until Vance touched his shoulder. "You okay?" "No." She waited. Ward looked back into the excavation. If Caleb was here. He struggled to finish the thought. Vance finished it for him. "Why didn't we find him?" Ward shook his head. "That's not the question." She frowned. Ward looked at the roots growing across the bones. Roots that had wrapped around the remains. Roots that could not have formed overnight. "The question is," he pointed into the hole, "when did he get here?" 12 hours earlier, Ward had been asleep when his phone rang. He answered before opening his eyes. "Ward." Vance's voice came through the speaker. "We found something at Cold Creek." His eyes opened. For a moment he believed he had misheard her. "What did you say?" "Cold Creek." He sat upright. The room was dark. Rain tapped against the bedroom window. Ward checked the clock. 4:46 a.m. "What happened?" "A volunteer team was searching for a missing hiker." Ward swung his legs from the bed. "What does that have to do with Caleb Mercer?" There was a pause, long enough to make him stand. Vance said, "The dog alerted at the old excavation site." Ward stopped moving. "Which dog?" "County K9. How long?" Repeated alerts. Ward reached for his clothes. "Do not dig." Another pause. "We already started." Ward closed his eyes. "Mara." The ground was disturbed. By what? "We don't know." "Did you find bone?" She did not answer. Ward opened his eyes. "Did you find bone?" "Come here." The call ended. Ward dressed without turning on the lights. He had kept the Cold Creek file in a locked cabinet long after every other retired case had been returned to storage. He opened the cabinet. The folder sat exactly where he had left it. Thick. Faded. Too familiar. Caleb's school photograph was clipped to the first page. 17 years old. Dark hair. Uneven smile. A face preserved by disappearance. Ward took the file and left. The drive to Cold Creek lasted nearly 90 minutes. Fog lay low across the highway. His headlights cut through it in narrow white tunnels. He drove faster than he should have. The old case replayed in fragments. Caleb leaving the campsite. The friends waiting 2 hours before reporting him missing. The first dog tracking his scent. The second dog confirming the same route. Both animals stopping at the clearing. Both scratching at the ground. The excavation. The empty hole. Caleb's mother asking Ward whether dogs could be wrong. Ward telling her that they could. He had not believed it then. He believed it even less now. The sun had begun to rise when he reached the park entrance. Cold Creek had changed. New signs, new gates, a larger visitor center, more security cameras, the same forest. Ward slowed as he passed the trailhead. A command trailer stood near the parking area. Search vehicles filled the lot. Volunteers moved between tables covered with maps and radios. A 17-year-old girl had vanished the previous afternoon. Lena Morris. She had separated from her parents near an overlook. Her phone had last connected to a tower shortly before sunset. Searchers had worked through the night. Ward parked beside the command trailer. Vance waited outside. She handed him coffee. He ignored it. "You said disturbed ground." She nodded. "The dog pulled us there during a grid search." "Was Lena's scent on the route?" "No." Ward looked toward the trail. "So, the dog wasn't tracking Lena?" "No. It found the clearing on its own." Vance nodded again. Ward held up the Cold Creek folder. "The original dogs did the same thing." "I know." "Who else knows?" "Only the search supervisor." "Keep it that way." Vance studied him. "You think this is connected?" "I think coincidence is what people call a pattern before the second body appears." Her expression tightened. "You haven't even seen the site yet." Ward looked toward the forest. "I've seen it." They entered the trail together. The morning air was cold and damp. The search operation faded behind them. After several minutes, Ward noticed the absence of sound. No birds, no squirrels moving through the undergrowth, no insects. He stopped. Vance took 2 more steps before turning. "What?" Ward listened. The forest remained silent. "Was it like this all night?" "I wasn't paying attention." "You should have been." She looked around. You're hearing danger in every tree. Ward resumed walking. No. He tightened his grip on the old case file. I'm hearing nothing. The excavation clearing appeared ahead. Several volunteers stood around the unfinished hole. The K9 handler waited beside them, his dog pulled toward the soil. Ward recognized the exact location before anyone pointed it out. The same boulder, the same slope, the same place where 2 dogs had insisted a missing boy was buried. Ward approached the handler. How many times did it alert? Every pass. Did it track the missing girl here? No. What was it tracking? The handler looked uncomfortable. I don't know. The dog scratched at the earth again, then barked. Ward stared at the ground. Vance said, "We can stop." Ward shook his head. Too late. The volunteers lifted their shovels. Ward stepped to the edge of the marked area. The words left his mouth before the first blade entered the soil. We already dug here. The excavation continued until the sun was fully above the trees. By then, everyone in the clearing knew the remains belonged to Caleb Mercer. The laboratory confirmation would take hours. The cracked molar had taken seconds. Ward stood apart from the others, while the forensic team exposed the rest of the skeleton. The body lay curled on its right side. One arm was folded beneath the chest, the other extended toward the surface. Several fingers were missing. The ribs on the left side had been crushed inward. The pelvis was fractured. One leg had been twisted nearly backward. None of it resembled a peaceful burial. Vance joined Ward near the tree line. The medical examiner wants the entire area sealed. Do it. That means pulling volunteers from Lena's search. Ward looked toward the bones. Caleb waited 22 years. Lena has been missing 18 hours. Ward turned to her. I know. Vance lowered her voice. Then tell me which one matters more. Ward watched the forensic technician lift a section of rib from the soil. Lena. Good. But this stays protected. Vance nodded. I'll leave 2 deputies. 4. We don't have 4. Then find them. She studied his face. You think someone might disturb the site? Ward looked into the forest. I think something already did. Vance followed his gaze. Nothing moved. The silence had become difficult to ignore. The volunteers spoke quietly. The forensic team handled equipment with unusual care. Even the radio seemed too loud whenever someone transmitted. The K9 handler returned without Scout. Ward met him halfway across the clearing. Did you find the dog? The handler shook his head. He made it back to the parking area. Then where is he? In the vehicle. Why? He won't get out. Ward glanced toward the trail. Has he ever done that before? Never. What happens when you open the door? He crawls under the rear seat. Vance joined them. Maybe the excavation frightened him. The handler looked at her. Scout has worked collapsed buildings. Flood recoveries. 3 homicide searches. I've seen him stand over bodies that had been underground for months. He pointed toward the forest. That wasn't fear of the hole. Ward asked, what was he looking at? Nothing I could see. Ward looked down at the man's empty leash. Take him out of the park. We still have a missing girl. Scout is finished here. The handler hesitated, then nodded. As he walked away, Vance said, You're making decisions based on a frightened dog. Ward answered without looking at her. The last time I ignored frightened dogs, a 17-year-old boy stayed missing for 22 years. The forensic technician called for them. Ward and Vance approached the hole. The technician held a sealed evidence bag containing a small metal object. A silver chain, a rectangular pendant. Ward recognized it immediately. Caleb's mother had given him the same photograph every anniversary. Caleb had worn the pendant in every picture. The technician turned it over. 2 initials had been scratched into the back. CM Vance exhaled slowly. That's enough for identification. Ward stared at the pendant. No. She looked at him. What else do you need? I need to know how he got into a hole that was empty. The technician climbed out. We may have something stranger. She handed Ward several photographs taken during the excavation. The remains were beneath a web of roots. Some passed over the rib cage. Others curved around the arms and skull. Ward said, That proves he was here for years. It proves the roots grew around him. Same thing. The technician shook her head. Not necessarily. Vance frowned. Explain. Some of these roots are older than the burial. Ward looked again. The largest root crossed directly over Caleb's spine. So the body was placed beneath them. That should be impossible without cutting them. Were they cut? No. Broken? No. The technician pointed to another photograph. The growth is continuous. No scars. No regrowth. No evidence anyone disturbed them. Vance looked toward the open excavation. So how did the body get underneath? The technician sealed her equipment case. I don't know. Ward returned the photographs. Don't put that in the preliminary report. She stared at him. You want me to hide evidence? I want you to verify it before the press turns this into nonsense. I don't write reports for the press. Neither did I. Ward looked back at Caleb's bones. people still turned my report into 22 years of mistakes. The technician walked away. Vance waited until she was out of earshot. You believe her? Ward did not answer. You believe those roots weren't cut? I believe the ground was empty in 2004. People remember things wrong. I kept the photographs. Photographs miss things. The excavation went 8 feet down. Maybe Caleb was outside the marked area. He isn't. Vance folded her arms. Then give me an explanation that doesn't involve the impossible. Ward looked at her. If I had one, Caleb wouldn't have spent 22 years under a place we already searched. A radio crackled from Vance's shoulder. A search team had found Lena's backpack near the eastern ravine. Vance answered immediately. Any blood? A pause. Negative. Phone? Another pause. Still inside. Ward stepped closer. Vance asked, was the bag dropped or placed? The searcher replied, hard to tell. The straps are torn. Ward held out his hand. Vance passed him the radio. This is Ward. Describe the damage. The searcher answered. One shoulder strap is ripped clean through. Fabric snagged. No. Cut. No. Ward looked toward the crushed ribs in the excavation. Any tracks? Mostly volunteer traffic. Anything large? A longer pause. There are depressions. What kind? We don't know. Photograph them. Do not follow them. The searcher hesitated. We thought they might lead to Lena. Ward tightened his grip onto radio. They might. Photograph them first. Then wait for Sheriff Vance. He returned the radio. Vance said, You don't command my teams. Then tell them the same thing. She did. The excavation was suspended shortly before noon. Caleb's remains were transported under police escort. Ward stayed behind. He stood over the empty shape in the soil after the bones were gone. The impression of the body remained. A curved hollow, a darker stain. Roots hanging above it like exposed veins. One of the deputies guarding the site watched him. You really searched this place before? Ward nodded. My father volunteered on that search. Ward looked at him. He never believed the boy left the park. He was right. The deputy stared into the hole. So where was he? Ward stepped away. That is the only question anyone should be asking. By early afternoon, Ward had covered one wall of the command trailer with old maps. The Cold Creek region had produced 7 unresolved disappearances over 28 years. Not all were hikers. One had been a hunter. One a surveyor. 2 were teenagers. A woman had vanished after leaving her disabled vehicle on the access road. Most cases had nothing obvious in common. Different seasons, different routes, different weather. Ward ignored the final reports. He focused on the dogs. 4 of the 7 cases had involved K-9 teams. In all 4, the dogs had alerted. Not along a trail. Not near abandoned belongings. At precise points where nothing had been found. Ward marked each location in red. Vance entered the trailer carrying 2 cups of coffee. She placed one beside him. "You haven't eaten." Ward drew another circle. "Neither has Lena. We have teams on both sides of the ravine." "How many dogs?" "2. How are they behaving?" "Normal. For now." Vance studied the wall. "What am I looking at?" Ward pointed to the red marks. 4 missing people. 4 K-9 alerts. 4 empty searches. Caleb was one. Vance followed the marks across the map. They're miles apart. Yes. Different terrain. Yes. So what's the pattern? The dogs insisted someone was there. And? Ward tapped Caleb's location. One of them was right. Vance looked at the other 3 marks. "You think there are more bodies?" "I think we stopped listening because the ground told us the dogs were wrong." Vance set down her coffee. "These locations were searched years ago. So was Caleb's. We are not excavating 3 sites while Lena is still missing." Ward turned toward her. "We don't have to." He selected the nearest mark. "This one is 80 yards from the ravine team." Vance understood. "You want them to check it. I want a dog to walk past it. Nothing more." She considered the map, then transmitted the coordinates. 20 minutes later, the first K-9 team reached the site. The handler reported no reaction. Vance looked at Ward. He said nothing. The second dog arrived from the opposite direction. For several seconds, the radio carried only breathing and movement. Then barking erupted through the speaker. Violent, continuous. The handler shouted something Ward could not understand. Vance grabbed the microphone. "Report." The barking intensified. The handler finally answered. "Strong alert." "At the marked coordinate?" "Directly on it." Ward was already reaching for his coat. Vance blocked the door. "Lena first. This may be connected. Or it may be another 20-year-old body." Ward looked at the map. "If the dog is right, we need to know. If the dog is wrong, we lose daylight." The radio sounded again. This time the handler was breathing heavily. "Sheriff," Vance answered. "What happened?" The dog started digging. And it stopped. "Why?" No answer. Vance repeated the question. The handler lowered his voice. Something moved. Under the ground. Ward and Vance stared at each other. Vance took the microphone. Back away from the site. Do not dig. Do not approach. The handler replied. Understood. Then someone screamed over the radio. The transmission cut to static. Vance called the team. No response. She tried again. Nothing. Ward opened the trailer door. Vance grabbed a rifle from the equipment rack. Outside, the park remained bright beneath the afternoon sun. Volunteers moved between search sectors. Helicopters circled above the ridge. Everything looked controlled. Organized. Safe. Then 2 K9 dogs appeared at the far end of the parking area. Both were running without handlers. One still dragged a leash. The other had blood across its chest. The dogs did not stop when people called them. They crossed the lot, past the command trailer, and kept running toward the park entrance. Ward watched until they disappeared down the access road. Vance raised the radio again. All teams hold position. Repeat. All teams hold position. A dispatcher answered. What about Lena? Vance looked toward the forest. Before she could respond, a new voice broke through the channel. Weak. Young. Female. Please. Static swallowed the next words. Ward took the radio. Lena. A breath. Then the same voice. Please don't leave. Ward looked at Vance. The transmission continued. It's still here. Then silence. Ward pressed the transmit button. Ward pressed the transmit button. Lena. Listen to me. Tell me where you are. Only static answered. Vance switched channels. Team 4. Report. Nothing. Team 4. Respond. Silence. Ward looked toward the eastern trail. The 2 dogs had come from that direction. One had been covered in blood. Neither handler had returned. Vance raised the radio again. All search teams withdraw to the command post. Move in pairs. Do not leave anyone behind. A supervisor answered from the northern sector. We're less than half a mile from Lena's last phone location. Withdraw. We still have daylight. Vance's voice hardened. That was an order. Ward took a rifle from the equipment rack. Vance watched him check the chamber. You are not going out there. Lena just called us. We don't know that was Lena. You heard her. I heard a young woman on an open channel. Ward clipped a flashlight to his jacket. Then I'll ask her name when I find her. Vance stepped between him and the trail. We have 2 missing handlers. Which is why we're not waiting. We need a tactical team. How long? 40 minutes. Ward looked at the silent forest. Lena may not have 40 minutes. Vance held his stare, then turned toward 3 deputies near the trailer. Reed. Collins. Ortiz. With us. Nobody argued. The 5 of them entered the Eastern Trail less than 3 minutes later. Ward led with the old map folded inside his coat. Vance walked beside him. The deputies followed in a tight line. Every radio remained on the same channel. Every weapon remained lowered, but ready. The first 100 yards were quiet. Too quiet. Search ribbons moved gently from branches. Discarded water bottles marked places volunteers had passed earlier. Nothing looked disturbed. Ward stopped beside a strip of torn orange tape. Vance whispered, "What?" Ward pointed toward the mud. 2 sets of boot prints entered the trail from the north. Both belonged to the missing handlers. Beside them were dog tracks. All 4 trails continued ahead. Only the dogs' tracks returned. Vance crouched. No human prints coming back. Ward followed the marks deeper into the trees. One dog's return path cut wildly from side to side. The other ran almost perfectly straight. Both had been moving at full speed. Collins examined a dark smear on a fern. Blood. Ortiz asked, "Dog or human?" Collins touched the edge with a gloved finger. Too much to tell. Ward continued. The marked K9 coordinate lay 700 yards ahead. Lena's last phone location was another quarter-mile beyond it. The terrain descended sharply toward a ravine. Roots crossed the trail like cables. Wet leaves hid loose stone. They moved slowly. Not because they wanted to. Because one mistake could send someone 30 feet downhill. After several minutes, Reed raised one fist. Everyone stopped. A voice had come from somewhere ahead. Quiet. Barely audible. "Please." Ward lifted the radio. "Lena?" The voice came again. Not from the radio. From the forest. Vance pointed downhill. There. They left the trail. The slope forced them into a staggered line. Ward pushed through thick brush until he found a search vest caught on a branch. The fabric had been torn from shoulder to waist. A radio still hung from the front pocket. The unit was transmitting. Ward picked it up. The microphone button had been jammed beneath a broken clip. That was why Lena's voice had reached them. Vance examined the blood on the vest. Handler? Ward looked at the name patch. Mills, one of the missing K9 officers. A weak voice came from below. "Don't leave me." Ward moved toward it. Vance caught his sleeve. "Slow." They descended another 20 yards. A young woman lay beneath the exposed roots of a fallen tree. Mud covered her clothes. One shoe was missing. Her hands were cut and bleeding. But she was alive. Ward lowered the rifle. Lena Morris? She stared at him without recognition. He crouched several feet away. My name is Elias. Your parents are waiting for you. Her eyes moved past him, toward the trees. Ward said, We're going to take you out. Lena shook her head. No. You need medical attention. Don't move me. Vance knelt beside her. Lena, are you injured? The girl looked down as if she had forgotten her own body existed. My ankle. Anything else? Lena's lips trembled. He told me to stay here. Ward and Vance exchanged a glance. Who told you? The man with the dog. Mills? I don't know. He found me. He said he was going to call. Ward looked at the torn vest. Where did he go? Lena pointed uphill. He heard something. What kind of sound? She swallowed. Digging. Nobody spoke. Ward asked, Where was the other handler? There were two men. One went to look. The other stayed. Then the dog started screaming. Ortiz shifted uneasily. Dogs don't scream. Lena looked directly at him. This one did. A branch snapped somewhere behind them. All 5 officers turned. Nothing appeared. The word came from Ward. Reed did not listen. He fired. The first shot struck the creature's shoulder. The second hit somewhere near its neck. The animal jerked sideways. For one hopeful second, Ward believed it might retreat. Then it crossed the distance in less than 3 seconds. Reed fired again. Missed. The creature hit him before anyone could move. There was no bite, no dramatic struggle. One forelimb struck Reed across the chest. His body left the ground. He hit a tree hard enough to break branches 10 feet above the trail. The creature reached him before he fell. Ward saw its jaws close once. Reed disappeared into the brush. Vance fired. Collins fired. Ortiz fired. The creature dragged Reed between the trees while bullets tore bark from the trunks around it. Then it was gone. The entire attack lasted less than 6 seconds. Lena screamed. Ward grabbed her face gently but firmly. Look at me. She couldn't. Look at me. Her eyes found his. We are leaving. No one stops. No one turns around. Vance reloaded. Reed is gone. Collins stared at the trees. We can't just leave him. Ward pointed to the blood disappearing into the forest. He's dead. You don't know that. I know. Collins took one step toward the brush. A low sound rolled through the trees. Not a roar, a deep vibration. The soil beneath their boots trembled. Collins stopped. Ward said, That is what it wants. Vance looked at him. You said it wasn't intelligent. I didn't say anything about intelligence. You said it was an animal. Ward watched the brush move where Reed had vanished. Animals learn what makes prey come closer. The vibration stopped. Ward adjusted Lena's weight. Move! This time, everyone obeyed. They reached the first K9 coordinate near sunset. The marked spot lay just off the trail. The dog's scratches were still visible in the soil. Beside them, something else had disturbed the earth. A wide depression, nearly 8 feet long. The ground had collapsed inward. Ward stopped despite himself. Vance followed his gaze. "What is that?" He approached slowly. Roots hung across the opening. Fresh soil covered older layers beneath. The hollow descended farther than his flashlight could reach. Collins whispered, "A den?" Ward crouched. No animal tracks surrounded it. No excavated dirt had been pushed outward. The ground looked as though it had simply opened. Lena stared into the hole. Her breathing stopped. Ward noticed. "You've seen this." She shook her head too quickly. "Lena." She stepped backward. "It came out of there." Ward looked into the darkness. "Is that where it took Mills?" "No." "Then what came out?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Not the one that chased us." Nobody moved. A sound rose from deep beneath the earth. Soft at first, then clearer. Scratching. Not one set of claws. Several. Vance backed away. Ward did the same. The scratching stopped. A human voice came from inside the hole. Faint. Broken. "Please." Collins stepped forward. Ward blocked him. The voice continued, "Don't leave me." It sounded exactly like Mills. Lena covered her ears. "That's not him." The voice repeated the words. Same rhythm. Same weakness. "Don't leave me." Then another voice joined it. A young man's voice. Ward had heard it before. Not in person. On an old emergency recording. Caleb Mercer. 22 years earlier. The voice from beneath the ground whispered, "Help me." Ward stood frozen over the hole. Behind them, somewhere in the darkening forest, something massive began moving toward the trail. Nobody spoke. Ward never took his eyes off the opening. The voice came again. "Help me." It sounded exactly like Caleb Mercer. Exactly like the recording taken 22 years earlier. Same hesitation. Same breathing. Same fear. Colin stepped toward the hole. Ward grabbed his shoulder. "Don't. It could be someone alive." "No." "You don't know that." "I know enough." Another voice rose from the darkness. This one was different. Older. "Sheriff." Vance froze. It was Reed. Not similar, not close. Perfect. Her grip tightened around the rifle. "Reed?" The voice answered immediately. "I'm here." Lena shut her eyes. "I told you." "That's not him." Silence. Then, something moved beneath the ground. Not digging, not climbing. Turning. Slowly. The soil vibrated beneath their boots. Ward backed away. "So do we." Nobody argued. They left the sinkhole without looking back. Night swallowed the forest within minutes. Flashlights cut narrow tunnels through the darkness. Nobody walked alone. Nobody spoke unless necessary. Every few minutes, one of them looked behind. Nothing. Until they reached the first bridge. A narrow wooden crossing above a rocky stream. Ward stopped. The bridge hadn't looked like this earlier. One support beam had splintered. Fresh wood. Fresh damage. Vance whispered, "It wasn't broken before." "No. Can it hold?" Ward looked across. "It has to." Collins crossed first, then Lena, then Vance. Ward waited for Ortiz. Halfway across, Ortiz stopped. "What?" Ward asked. Ortiz slowly turned. "I heard somebody." Nobody answered. From the darkness behind the bridge, a flashlight appeared. Swinging gently, a man stepped into the beam. Reed, covered in blood. Walking. Slowly. Collins shouted, "He's alive!" Ward didn't move. Reed smiled weakly. "You left me." Vance took one step toward the bridge. Ward blocked her. "Look at him." "What?" "The blood." She frowned. "So?" Ward never blinked. "It's dry." Reed continued walking. One slow step after another. His left arm hung at an impossible angle. His ribs moved strangely beneath torn clothing. His neck leaned several degrees too far to one side. He shouldn't have been standing. He shouldn't have been breathing. Yet, he kept walking. Lena buried her face against Collins. "Don't let him cross." Reed reached the bridge. Ward raised the rifle. "Stop!" Reed stopped instantly. Not frightened. Not confused. Simply stopped. The smile disappeared. He tilted his head, almost like an animal trying to understand a sound. Ward spoke quietly. "If you're Reed, tell me your dog's name." No answer. Reed smiled again. "Please, help me." Ward fired. The bullet struck Reed in the chest. The body fell backward. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then, something behind him moved. Not Reed. Behind him. A shape unfolded between the trees. It had been standing there the entire time. So large, the darkness itself had hidden it. It lowered toward Reed's body. One massive forelimb closed around him. Bones cracked. The body disappeared into the trees. No roar. No threat display. It simply left. The entire encounter lasted less than 10 seconds. Nobody moved. Ward lowered the rifle. "Go." They reached the command post just before midnight. Empty. Vehicles remained. Generators hummed. Coffee still sat on folding tables. But everyone was gone. Dozens of people. Gone. The radios exploded with static. Different voices, different channels. Some crying, some screaming. Most impossible to understand. Ward grabbed the main microphone. This is Detective Ward. If anyone can hear me. Static. Then, one sentence. Don't search tomorrow. Silence. Lena stared at the empty camp. It already happened. Ward looked at her. What happened? She shook her head. I don't know. I just know. Behind them, trees began breaking. Closer. Much closer. Vance shouted, "Vehicles!" Everyone ran. Ward threw Lena into the passenger seat of the nearest truck. Collins climbed into the back. The engine started. Headlights flooded the trail. Ward slammed the accelerator. The truck bounced violently across the dirt road. Branches scraped the windows. Something struck the rear of the vehicle. Once. Twice. Collins screamed. It's on us. Ward never looked in the mirror. He pressed harder. The truck burst through the park entrance, onto asphalt, streetlights, civilization. The impacts stopped. Instantly. Ward slowed. No one spoke. Nobody looked back. 3 days later, Cold Creek National Park was closed indefinitely. The official report blamed unstable ground. The disappearances remained under investigation. Caleb Mercer was finally buried beside his parents. Reed's body was never recovered. Neither were the missing handlers or the volunteers from the command post. Weeks later, another county reopened an old missing person investigation. A search dog alerted beside an abandoned fire road. The report ended with one familiar sentence. K9 indicated possible human remains. Nothing was found. Ward read the report in silence, then opened Caleb's old file. He removed the final page. Under 22 years of notes, he wrote one last line. The dogs were never wrong. He closed the folder, locked the cabinet, turned off the office light. Somewhere, miles away, another search had already begun.